Hello, everyone. We're going to get started very quickly, very soon. I'm Alan. Chris will be around here somewhere around my screen. Feel free to let us know that you can hear us, and me at least, and Chris can say hello as well, so you can hear him. And we'll just get started pretty promptly on time. Oh, Orlando, Florida. Wow. If you want to speak to everyone in the Zoom chat, there's a little button. You notice where it says two, and then there's a blue button next to it that says hosts and panelists. If you press that, you can chat to everyone. Yeah, I don't want to be selfish and hold all your comments for myself. I want everyone to see them. So yeah, how about telling us where you're from, and we'll get started. There's Chris. So it is on the hour. I make it. So let's get started. No fluff, all content. So let's get started with packages, policies, performance. Welcome. I'm Alan. This is Chris. A few admin housekeeping things. Everyone's muted except us. There is a chat. So feel free to ask questions in there or make comments or, ask for clarifications or anything like that at any time. We welcome questions. There's also a Q&A section, so you can explicitly ask questions in there. But there's also, if you put questions in the chat, other people can comment and everyone else can give their point of view as well. Also, there are polls in Zoom. I don't think we'll be using those today, but that's in there anyway. After the webinar, you will get sent an email with a link to the video and the slides. So don't worry if there's a lot of text on a slide or myself or Chris aren't super clear to understand, or there's command lines or stuff on the screen. Don't worry about all that. You'll get a copy of the slides and it'll have everything in it. So yeah, that's all great. Next up is the agenda. This is what we're going to cover. We're going to do an introduction to Grant, our license checker. It's a new release that's just come out. And so we want to know what's new in the new release of Grant. We'll talk about some challenges that you get in the license checking software scanning world, and some future developments in Syft and Gripe, and then Q&A. But you can throw questions at us at any time, and we'll collate them and then either do them at an appropriate point and jump in there and then, or we'll save them up to the end. That's it. Right, let's join in and get going. We're 1 minute in. I think we've managed to cover all the essentials. Over to you, Chris, Senior Software Engineer at Anchor.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Thank you so much for the intro. Thank you for giving Grant the rollout it kind of deserves for this new version. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're just going to cover a quick anecdote about why Grant exists before going into the functionality for it. So I used to work at Capital One. And I've heard similar stories from people at the SPDX organization, but what happens is basically you're about to ship and get something open sourced, and then 5 or 6 different departments that you didn't know existed at your company come and ask you a bunch of very difficult questions that you have never prepared to answer over the entire development of your software lifecycle. And that would lead to sometimes weekends or weeks of late nights of going to every package and then finding that packages package, and then finding that packages package of the licenses to be sure that we were not releasing any kind of code that contained either something that's GPL'd or some other like strong copy left license that could tank or torpedo, or some legal authority could come and say, hey, now that you have included that package in that license, all that code belongs to X organization, or you now have to open source it under these terms, right? We hated doing that. We hated that becoming like a last minute thing. And so we found here at Anchor that one of the nicest pairings we ever had was we already generate SBOMs with Syft. SBOMs from the SPDX organization were originally meant to challenge and address this specific thing. So let's marry the two and see if we can get better license visibility for our developers before they get asked those hard questions. Okay, so with that kind of like, this is the space that we're trying to solve, let's take a look at what's new in the latest release of Grant. If you've been using it before, you'll notice we have a new config, which we'll cover in another slide. We have a new workflow of how to do the investigation and checking of all of your different licenses that can be in your SBOM document. We have clickable licenses now, so that when you get the whole output on your screen, there are hyperlinks, if it's an SPDX license, to the text, with then other links there that take you to the official license documentation. We have better performance. That's a big shout out to Alan. He ran it against a project once and said, I have a ton of memory that's in use on my giant machine. Can you please help me? We narrowed down the fix of what was being read and like how it was ingesting and trying to do licenses. So big ups to Alan for that help on the performance improvement. And we've added an unlicensed filter, which is just, I don't care so much about what licenses I have. I want the negative space. And this helps people who want to know the risk for packages that might be in an SBOM that you know is perfect, but also it helps developers on the Syft side where, hey, we know we might be falling short in these ecosystems. Let's run Syft against a directory of said ecosystem. You'll see an example later in this presentation. Let's find all the things that are unlicensed, and then let's get a PR in that gets our ability in that ecosystem to be on par with something like Golang or NPM, like we have right, or the Node.js kind of ecosystems. Also, last but not least, we have a new mascot. You always love the sifting gripe like Monster and Owl, so we decided to go with a new pangolin, new armadillo. You can decide which one it is. It's this cute green lizard-like creature, and it's Grant, and he's here to help you with your licenses. Okay, so let's start from the top. The previous config, if some of you were users before, that is on the left here, and it was a little repetitive, right? You have the pattern you want to match. You were given a name. You can do a mode. We had allow or deny. We didn't see many people doing the deny path explicitly. We just wanted to do more allow. So we opted in to just do that with the new config. And then you had kind of a reason of why you wanted to do that. Comments are good for these things. YAML is great for adding inline comments about it. So we just zipped it up to a single allow list, still with the glob matching that you like. We have new abilities at the top where you can require a license, yes or no. You can disable that if you want to be more permissive, or if you want all your packages to have a license associated with it without an exception, you can turn that on to be super like strict and enforceable. And then we have an even more strict option here, which is required known license, which is, are all the licenses in the SPDX list, or are they something like, are you consuming something like, I don't know, this is my license and I believe you can do whatever you want with it. Tiny AI text at the bottom, ha ha ha, all your code is mine, blah, blah, blah. Like, if you don't want those not unofficial licenses to be used, and you, like, Grant is easy to recognize that something is not in the SPDX list, and you can gate and enforce on that. We also have an exceptions list for packages that, for whatever reason, let's say it came up with like an or statement where it was like, Apache or GPL, and you're selecting the Apache use, or you're only using the code that's from the Apache side of things, right? You can put a package exception and make a note that that's what you're doing. So, new config, new update, check and try it out. There's also an issue on Grant where you can convert from the old config to the new. Try that one out and see if it works for you if you have an old one that's working and you want to go to the new one. Okay, so once you have your new config in place, this is kind of what the new workflow is going to look like. This is the baseline. Like before we even get to check and compliance, we want to do list and we want to see what even is in our current directory. You can also run this against a container if you have a container use case. That's less of what we see people want to use this for, only because containers sometimes have, you know, they're an amalgamation of different licenses with a package that might be GPL, but at the end of the day, no one's invoking that. You're not shipping that code really. It doesn't link into anything you're doing. It just kind of statically exists in the bulk of your container. So right now we're going to look at the directory scanning use case. You see all the licenses here on the left-hand side. You're going to see the number of packages that consist of that license. And then we have a small kind of risk profile. This is in memory to Grant right now. We don't have a database backing this up. But if you have special like expertise in how licenses are copy left, or if they're medium risk, or they're like semi-copy left, or if they're permissive, and you want to go and check, you should make sure to go and look at that specific generation code and add in like, oh, Chris, you got this wrong. Or, oh, Anchor, I saw you had this as strong. Can you tell me why? This is kind of where and how you want to tweak these. And in a future release, we're going to make it so that these risk profiles are going to be configurable by the user. So this is the kind of like first release of risk existing in this view. So moving on, you can then take the list that you want, and you can zoom in on the packages for individual licenses. So just as you did list, you got the whole list of licenses. The next logical step is just add a license to the end of that and see all of the packages for your SBOM or your directory that have the license installed. This takes n number of licenses, so you can like go buku on the filters. You could do BSD, MIT, Apache. You can keep going, and then it'll narrow it down to all of the packages that contain those while filtering away the other ones. Notice in this example for this like project, we have multiple packages, right? So we have both Golang packages and we have NPM packages and JavaScript packages. Like this is kind of the superpower of Grant by using Syft and using SBOMs under the hood. A lot of license tools are, specific to the ecosystem or specific to the thing, but as soon as you build like a web application or even architecture that has more of a mixed stack and you want to see a full view of all the licenses for the multiple ecosystems, that's where we kind of step in and can provide the unified view of that. Um, this is one of those like scary questions that you would get asked right before going into an open source state or releasing something where your legal team goes, "Hey, can you just tell me all the packages in the code that we're shipping that have BSD?" And you go, "I'll get back to you with a spreadsheet in a couple days." Now I'm going to print this out. You can use the JSON output to, machine manipulate that in the most presentable way possible. You can show them this like nice little table. All that works to just answer those questions quickly and bat them away. I think the other thing I want to talk about too is when you get to a long audit like this, it can be very overwhelming to just toss big sheets back and forth of like, here's all the things, here's all the things. That's like saying blah to one person and blah back to another person. Grant's really good at making like individual outputs that are the filters. So you can say, okay, this is the BSD file. This is the MIT file. This is the GPL file. Like these, and then you can deliver all of those. So then you can only get one of those back rather than this like unified, oh my God, the world is ending. Here are all the packages and all the licenses in my like universe, right? So the more you filter and the more you leverage like the distinct outputs of going down to the individual packages or their licenses, the less headache you'll have in like a week-long audit. Okay,
Hey, can I
so
throw a
then we
question
did,
at you, Chris?
yeah,
Do you
go
mind?
ahead.
So, in these little GIFs that you've got running, you're scanning just a directory, like, and something we don't really talk a lot about is like the versatility of what you can scan. Like, you could scan a cloned out repo, you could scan your built final thing, you could scan a container. There's like loads of different things you can scan. But in this example, you're just doing a directory, right?
That's correct. Yeah, for this one, we're doing the directory because it gives the most, I guess, context to the tool for the demo of, hey, I know I have this Go mod file. I have this package.json. Let's use Syft and all of the capabilities it has to search and find the licenses associated with those manifests, and let's build that into one view. But there are tons of other options if you go into the Grant like README
Mhm.
where you can see a container being done. You can see, we're going to cover an example where we extract an SBOM from a container and we scan that instead. And one of the best things about this too is that yes, these examples are always like redoing the scan over and over again. But if you did Syft SBOM on dir, then instead of Grant having to re-spend the CPU cycles over and over again to do the scan and assemble the things together, once you have that document, it's so much faster. Like you'll see the demos like zip up and just go, oh, I have a document instead of having to produce the document myself. Ace, that's great. I'm going to use that
Yeah.
instead.
I'll re-ask that question when we get onto that slide, actually, because I want to talk more about that. I'll let you carry on. Thank you for that.
No worries at all. We also already covered like this multiple license for same package, but I just want to highlight in this demo that you can see that you have the CC by 4.0, the MPL, the OFL, and then we can see here, oh, MySQL, this Go package has a medium risk with MPL. That's something that, once you have kind of the licenses you want to zoom in on, you can find the risk associated to the package. Let's say for this one, the licenses here where you saw three existing for that one package, you want to go, oh, what are all the three licenses that Grant found that was associated with that package? Let's figure out why that might exist, right? You can really dig and say, okay, now this is the thing I need to focus on, or this is the thing my legal department might ask me about, and I have the answer for them, right? This one, in the case here, the insight was Font Awesome is totally free. It's great and it's amazing to use, right? It is MIT. I think it's also Apache on one side, but there is a part of the license for it where it is CC, the common clause, or the Creative Commons license, which basically says, hey, if you use these specific icons or you use these sets, you have to attribute us and you have to put our branding and say you used our icons and stuff in your release. And that's fine. Some people are very happy to do that. They're great people at Font Awesome. And that's how they make their money. They advertise through the people who use them and they say, hey, if you use these icons, attribute to us and come back to us. Sometimes your legal department, sometimes your leadership, they don't want to put that branding or they don't want to do that attribution. So they'll say, don't use those icons, use something else. That's a choice for how you build and how you do software and how you operate as an organization. We're here to give you the answer so you can get to that question faster than spending, a couple days or weeks trying to figure it out for every package. Okay, So finally, once you've isolated and found the package that you want to do, you can pass this dash dash package flag to really see, hey, what is causing me the grief here? You can see, is the license deprecated? That's like a, whew, oh my God, that's awesome. It's deprecated. Let's find the upgraded one and see if we're good. You can see a little flag if the open source initiative has approved the license for kind of sourcing it out and using it in an open source way. Check out the open source initiative's process that they go through for certifying a license as open source. It's very comprehensive. They take their time. They're really nice people. But we download their data and we basically tack on, hey, OSI has said thumbs up, thumbs down about this license. And we reveal that to you. So then you can click, see how the CC here, the Creative Commons is blue. You can command click on that and it will take you to the Creative Commons SPDX website, which then has more links that show you everything about it you need to know to make a decision on if you want to include it or how you're including it in your package. The only reason I'm thinking about this is because when we're talking about scrambling and adding attribution notices to every product that are using these icons, that's kind of that's a horrible task to think about, and I wouldn't want that on anyone. So the more that you can bake tools like Grant in early in your pipeline, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, and we'll show how we dogfood it ourselves, the more you can catch these early, the more these processes just get avoided, and we don't want people being surprised when they go to release their code and if they don't have the attributions correct or not.
And the flip side of that is actually, if you do want to put that in, then that's something you could be informed about and know, oh, right, if we're going to use it under the CC by, share alike or attribution, then I should factor in somewhere in the user interface that I should be able to put that kind of stuff. Where would I put the attribution? And it kind of just gets you thinking about that, whether you're going to do it or not. Like it puts that in your mind that you might not even thought about. So yeah.
Yeah, we want people to front load this work and to think about this work early in the software development process and not it
Mm.
always be this painful because the amount of pressure that comes from trying to release something into open source as it comes to putting a new product out there, you have a lot of extra pressure points of like someone from another side of the organization being like, "Hey, why has this not gone out yet? It said on the schedule it was going today," and you tell them about the ghastly license process that you're going through to get it out. They're like, well, why didn't we catch this earlier, right? Hopefully with tools like this, you can catch it a bit earlier so that pressure point doesn't ever come into play and you can release on time or at least have a better experience doing those attributions and getting everything zipped up correctly.
Yeah. I've got one more question actually, just
Yeah,
before
of
you move on.
course.
If you want to go back just a sec.
Oh, yeah.
We've got a question that says, how many layers do you go deep when you're enumerating transitive dependencies? Is it a fixed number like 3 or 5?
That's a great question. Okay, so over in Syft, we've had this philosophical debate a lot, where it goes, should we put like a depth check in there? And the answer is, as long as we're not detecting cycles, we try not to put these depth checks in into an ecosystem, right? So if Go has let's say we've gone 20 more years into the future, and there is some kind of package out there that has a chain that can go to a depth of like 25 or 30, right? We want to be able to go all the way down. We don't want to cut that number off. So we make sure that one, when doing the transitive lookups, that no cycles happen, right? If we in the Go ecosystem, it's interesting because they don't allow package imports, so that cycles like that don't happen when you're doing the tree. But for other systems, right, sometimes they're not as robust. They don't have that check. We want to be sure, one, that we're not cycling and looping forever, but two, we want to get to the full truth. So right now, for any of the catalogers, I don't think we have a depth. Don't quote me on that. I'll go back and check. We might have a depth legacy for one of the catalogers that was written before I was here, but the current standing philosophy is if anyone ever tries to get like a depth check into a cataloger, usually Alex or someone else raises their hand and goes, that's a weird arbitrary number. Maybe we make that configurable, but otherwise, let's just allow it to come up with the full truth of all of the dependencies, right? Otherwise, it's kind of useless, like your SBOM.
So just to clarify something you mentioned there, and for those people who are not aware, I did a poll just now and asked, have you used Grant, yes or no? And the majority of people haven't yet used it. So I posted the link to GitHub where people can get it. But for those who don't know the architecture, we do mention Syft quite a bit. And Syft is another separate project, but that you can run as a command to generate an SBOM. It's the SBOM generator, the little owl icon mascot. but it can also be used as a library in other products. And so other tools, such as Grant, incorporate Syft to do that discovery and the cataloging of all the different packages and dependencies and so on. So Grant doesn't actually do that itself. It offloads that to Syft, right? And similarly, Gripe, our vulnerability scanner, also leverages Syft. But like you said just now, and we'll get back to Syft a bit more later, I just wanted to clarify that point that for anyone who didn't pick it up, Syft is our SBOM generator that is used by Grant.
Yeah, that is a great point because we're going to cover in a little bit too how you can use Syft and use a specific config in Syft to say, I only care about these NPM packages or these JavaScript packages, right? I only care about these Golang packages. I only care about Syft has individual catalogers for different ecosystems, right? And you can mix and match and use them precisely in this case when generating an SBOM to look at only licenses for a certain ecosystem. So we'll take a look at what that looks like going forward because Grant out of the box, if you're not using Syft and piping in the standard in, Grant has kind of a smart configuration of what the ideal configuration it would try and use for Syft, but that is not going to check or fill all the boxes of people's use, right? So we encourage, and even in the Grant CI, in the continuous integration, we use a custom generate this specific SBOM for Grant and have Grant consume it because we know what we're looking for at the time of gating. For example, we know we're not shipping any of our GitHub actions into our compiled code. Our GitHub actions don't have some licenses associated with them. We don't want to flag against those. So we turn off the GitHub actions cataloger so that we can get just a clearer view of the Golang and that the Golang dependencies. And that's kind of
Cool.
what Alan alludes to with the power of mixing the two tools together. So if the
Nice.
link's not already in chat, you can find it. It's under our org Anchor. It's Syft, Grant, and Gripe. Those are the three tools that are going to come up in this presentation a bit.
Thanks
So
for that.
yeah, another cool thing that we wanted to cover for the new release and wanted to like this segues really well from just the discussion on Syft is there's a bit of a horror story we had with Golang in one of my previous incarnations of life working on an open source project. We imported the Go module. It seemed very safe. It had MIT, but then we found 15 more modules, and then those depended on 50 other modules. And then we eventually found a GPL license deep in that stack. So the goal with Syft before even coming into Grant was, okay, how do we even get this license detection for Golang up to snuff so that the SBOM we're producing is an accurate SBOM? Surprise, the go.mod file doesn't just give you all the transitive dependencies, and go.sum is actually like very incomplete when it comes to parsing and finding and just like you can't discover license files associated with packages in there. There's no like it's just a flat list. There's no tree to go through it. So there's no dependency of dependency or relationship kind of vibes you can get from there. So we had to come up with a different pattern, and luckily open source gave us the way forward. Um, there's this package that Golang has under their X tools called Go packages, and that invokes if you're on a system that has the Go tooling, it invokes the Go tooling to go, all right, I'm going to go to where the Go mod cache is. I'm going to visit every single module dir field. I'm going to then look up any kind of context of licenses that exist within that module dir that got shipped with it, because you're cloning it down to compile into your program. And I'm going to like surface those files for Syft and Grant's inspection. So what does this look like? This is what I alluded to a few minutes ago, where we're just overriding the default catalogers in Syft to use the Go module file cataloger. We're pointing it against our directory and we're running grant list. And what that does is that basically calls the packages.load from the packages library I just talked about, sends us to the Go path package mod, and then builds our entire transitive kind of tree of all of the dependencies for this Go project. It just basically goes doot, 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 stepping down, or this is a cool one where actually it's a walk up. So if you're a nerd and you like implementation details of like how it works, go check out the Go module file cataloger for Syft because it goes to the deepest layer and then walks back up, and then it knows it's never going to cross paths. So it just builds a list of all the deepest areas and then goes up and up and up until it exhausts that list of the deep ones that it's gone against. So that was kind of fun to write, and that was cool to just see it actually capture all of the licenses that exist for a Go project. These also give the accurate paths and locations for the module cache, so you can go and say, oh, I know the exact package it'll show up in your Go mod or Go sum, and we can put a stable identifier on there so you can decide if you want to excruciate or keep that package in your, in your code. Um, it's also context aware, so we're not gonna like if you're on a system that is building for Linux, it's not gonna pull in any of the Windows code that have the build tags at the top. It's all the Arch. It's because it's using what I'm trying to say basically is because it uses the Go native tooling itself, it respects all of the flags and environment variables that you would expect to be respected for that tool chain and for your build environment for Go. The other thing we wanted to talk about is it's not particular about just the license file itself. We have multiple glob matchers for the MD, for text, for copying notices, for notice for the GNU projects. We capture dual licensing and SPDX expressions. And I guess I can say no more blind spots, but this is a challenge to anyone who's like wants to use this. And if you find blind spots, please file an issue. We work based off of issues and feedback, and so we've tested it and checked it for our use cases. We're very confident in shipping Grant that no licenses are getting into Grant as they get shipped out, and for our other tools. But we would like feedback and acknowledgement on coverage or lack of coverage. And that's kind of where this no licenses is going, where we talk about beyond Grant for Syft. We've included this unlicensed flag as part of list because we know that there are ecosystems we have to improve on the Syft side, right? It wasn't like a magic bullet and, oh, we're going to just release Grant and then every single cataloger has licenses implemented. No, we knew it was going to be a slow build process of we're good on these catalogers and we're good for these ecosystems. Now let's step our game up and find the answers as to why, certain things are not being respected as far as the license is being found for it, whether it's GitHub Actions, whether it's like an Elixir stack. There's sometimes with Java, we don't pull the right license because we're not talking to Maven correctly. There's gaps. And if you're using it and you're finding those gaps, unlicensed is the best way to just see it. This isn't just for, the developers ourselves to go back and redo our work in Syft to make Grant better. It's for you guys to say, what am I finding that's unlicensed? Is this too large? Do I want to make exceptions for all these? Let me file an issue and ask the developers and say, hey, I found unlicensed for these. There's specifically a license file. We'll write the code that picks that up and gets it in, and we'll try and make it better for your use case, right?
I think that's a key thing. Like the features that you're talking about here, where there's, we're showing you something we didn't find, or we couldn't find, or is maybe hard to find, or we don't have the code path to do it. All three of these tools and a whole bunch of other things that they rely on, they're all open source. And if you file an issue or you get the attention of someone who is interested in fixing this, or you want to fix it yourself, then you can dive in because all the code is there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And just like I know there was a question in chat about JavaScript scanning and about to Alan's point about how all this is open source and do we like require the package JSON or package lock JSON? Yes, and we do a lot better if you have the node modules, right? So this is like the kind of full flow of you're a developer on your local, like not even if you've pushed to, and it's running in your GitHub Actions and CI, and there's a point where you have the node modules installed and they're like the directory is there. That's one of the best times to run Grant because not only is it using the package lock and the package.json, it knows how to use those and then go to the location of the package and then to look up if a license file exists there, right? So there's layers and there's multiple paths, and sometimes you'll run it and you'll get no licenses because all the build context wasn't there for like it just didn't know that the license file could be there. And one thing that we'll probably never do is we're never going to outside of like the official Go library packages and tools, right? Because they invoke their own tool chain. That's on them. We're happy to let them do that. We're never going to call like a command.exe and invoke your tooling for you, right? So we're not gonna all of a sudden install the node modules or make sure that the licenses are there and do that. Like the self-executing code or writing code that executes that without the user's knowledge, like that's not a boundary we like to cross too often in the development space at
That's
Anchor.
that's
So
a
yeah.
good point actually. And I know sometimes people say, well, you could find the version of a thing out by running it with dash dash version or something, or you could find out, something, you could introspect the program by running it with these parameters. And we never do that. Like none of the tools shell out because we don't necessarily trust what we're calling, right? We don't trust it, and so we will do whatever we can not to do that, right?
Yep, and we want to, and I'm a very big believer in you have to know the rules to like break the rules. And so
Mhm.
I covered a scenario where we break this rule conditionally because we're using a package that's officially supported by the Google kind of Go developers. And like that Go team has like blessed packages to call out to the Go toolchain. So that's like a second level of like an audited package that yes, like they're the team who authors and builds the tooling that they're calling. So thumbs up, we approve that. But our layer of we're going to reach across boundaries and execute arbitrary code, like that's kind of a that's a no. That's a no
Right.
for now.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt. We need to crack on.
No, we'll crack. Yeah, we'll crack on. So yeah, just come help and make it better. And then also the other reason there's been questions, what if I just have the SBOM? On the screen, you can see kind of like a script that will go to a chain guard library. It will pull the digest for it, and then it can rip the SBOM out of that image. And then you can use this SBOM, like SBOM.SPDX or JSON, to then see, hey, do I have the licenses that I need for this container? Or if I modify this container and make it even smaller, ChainGuard does a great job making their images small, but let's say you're just a competitive micro container programmer and you're like, I want to make it smaller. You rip stuff out. You can see the licenses kind of go away as you rebuild it and rebuild the SBOM for it. So Grant's got you for this. At the top of this GIF, you'll just see we can scan SBOMs as input. So security teams who are generating SBOMs at build time and throwing them over the fence, that doesn't mean you need the source anymore to just do license compliance. You just need the document. If legal teams need license analysis, you don't need access to the source code. You just need the SBOM. It's kind of like, hey, I don't have the full universe of everything, but I have this document. You go, great, we'll use that and we'll do the best analysis we can on that document. We want to turn, you know, things that are produced as SBOMs into this kind of license intelligence you can use and get a general sense of like where the questions are and what you need to answer before going to production or before shipping stuff. And then if the product never changes, you don't have to rebuild or rescan or regenerate anything. You just use the same document if no commit or no change to the code has happened, because you can just keep analyzing from the previous step because there's no updates to take in. Any SBOM format, any license visibility we can try and do. We're very biased though, and we really hope you use Syft. I would, if people are like experimenting and playing with these tools, I would use SBOMs that Syft hasn't generated. If you have the source of that SBOM, I would then point Syft against that source, see the difference. And if you can find, if we're getting more licenses, great. If we're not, tell us. We want Syft to be the thing that is producing the best possible kind of actionable document. We don't want our documents to be useless. We want them. We've found that they're useful for vulnerabilities. We've found they're useful for licenses. We want to make them better and better. And the more people use and touch it, the better we can make them. We have the full SPDX license list integration. That's where all those nice identifiers come from. We have a bunch of aliases that kind of go, oh, that's so close to 0BSD. We're probably just going to lift that up and make that 0BSD for you. We're very, very strict in our generation of this list of like what aliases, what URLs are mapped, all of those things. If you find an error, check out the internal SPDX generate code for Grant. And, just it's always good to come to us and say, hey, I saw BSD 3 dash clause and some weird specific clause that someone attacked on. That didn't get zipped up to BSD 3. Can you do that? Yes, we can. We can make an alias and we can lump it all under the one like official SPDX ID while still maintaining the details of the name that was found and the contents of the license that were found. Okay. Finally, I know this presentation is getting long. I'm so sorry for this part, but I do like this thing the best. This is the group by risk. If you just need like hey, how many strong copyleft licenses and packages do they exist in? We have a group by risk view that just shells it out to here. And then you can use those previous filtering commands to go further down to find what those licenses are. They'll be highlighted in the red. You can then filter down by the package that exists and see where they are. All good investigative tools to just figure out immediately, hey, what should my eyes be on going forward? Does this matter to me? Great. And then we have compliance when you're ready. So we've talked a lot about list for the investigation. We've talked about, hey, you can look at all of these things. You can do the investigation. You can build up all the spreadsheets or the kind of problem areas that you want to look at. But what if you just want to get it running in production and have it gating on your licenses? This config on the right, this is what we have as the grant.yaml for grant itself. These are all the ignored packages that we've found that either had a false positive or showing licenses that we've chosen for this, that we can ignore and say, yes, we know we're good on these. We don't have to audit them. And then the allow list is all the different licenses patterns that we allow for going through. So it's going to run this command, grant check dir, every time we make a pull request, every time we do a release, and it's just going to tell us that we haven't included new packages with new licenses that are giving us a problem. What that looks like is we pump that into a task file. If any of you are Go developers, again, check out. I think task files also work for non-Go ecosystems, but it's one of the great, like, hey, I used to use make. Now I use a task file because it's declarative YAML and it has all the descriptions of all the commands, of all the things that I want to like stitch together to build and run my CI and have actions kind of do logical things back to back. In this case, you can see for our PR validations at the top here, which is just like the aliases for default is PR validations. We do static analysis, we do test, we have build, and then what do we do for static analysis? We check our go mod tidy. That's to be sure we're pulling in all the transitive dependencies and building that mod cache. We do the lint, make sure we've written our code correctly, and then we do our license validations, right? We'll show in the next slide what this license validations block looks like in the task file, but you literally can just take this and then run task, static analysis, or even further up, task PR validations as a script in your CI, and it will do this on, say, pull request, on release. GitHub Actions is very powerful, and you can just orchestrate it that way. We also have a way at the bottom where if you don't like how check works, you don't like the status code 1 and parsing the table, there's just the JSON output that you can get that does status code 0, and then you can parse that how you want to display it and if you want to flag yes or no on it. So dry run allows you to go through check without any of the gating or stopping your stuff, and you can play with the JSON document as you want. This is the actual actions view. You take the task, you can see we're running Golang CI lint. That was the linter right before. And then we see license validation. So we're using Syft. We're doing the override of the default catalogers because we only care about our Go licenses. Grant is a Golang project. We are only shipping a binary that contains Go packages. And then we run grant check against it. It uses that config from the previous slide, and it tells us, are we denied or are we not? And then here at the bottom, when we said, oh, it runs license validations, this is what it looks like in the task file. This is what the task file knows to do for license validations. And this is kind of the deepest step all the way up to where in your actions file for validations or your actions file for PR, you move forward and run that. Okay. We're accepting contributions. We're encouraging everyone to come. Alan, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, great. Go
if
ahead.
you go back one,
Yes.
I want to ask you a question from the audience. How does Grant handle a SPDX formatted licenses that contain exceptions? So in the example they've given, it might say GPL2 or later with libtool exception. So, slightly like they've got exceptions to the standard license.
Interesting. Can you post that either as an issue or post the SPDX ID that shows the exception? I'm unfamiliar if it does it in the ID itself or if it's the license text that has exceptions on the bottom that say, this is the library that's the exception.
Are you asking for an example of something that is licensed like that? Is that what you're saying?
I would. Yeah, something that's licensed like that, and if it or the SPDX document that has the exception, because one, I don't think we parse those right now based on like how we do the decoding for the SPDX document. I don't think I've run into an exception being included as part of that model yet. Is this an SPDX 3 thing? Is it a 2.3? Basically, let's sync and let's talk about this because that would be something that would be really excellent to get in for 0.4. Like I have a whole list of things we want to do for 0.4. So parsing unique SBOM related exceptions for packages and matching those up via relationship from either Syft or the document itself, lovely. We would love to get that.
I'll pick that up. I'll find a package and I'll file an issue for you. That's cool.
Yeah, that's perfect.
No worries. Okay, as you were.
Great. Yeah, so on that note, contributions are very much encouraged. Not just like contribution, like, okay, I want to be super open and say whenever I used to hear contributions encouraged when I would join one of these things, I would be like, oh, PR, you want code? No, I don't mean just that. I mean, if you want to write a PR and if you want to like put something up there for us to review and work and pair on, thumbs up. I will do that with you. But contributions also include just issues. They include, I tried your tool and here's some feedback. They include talking about it and using it and like saying it worked for me, right? You can contribute in the smallest ways possible, the largest ways possible. You can find me on our discourse. You can find me on GitHub. If you tag me at SpiffCS, I will respond whenever I can. GitHub notifications are a fire hose. It is eventually consistent, I promise you. I will get to you, and we really all feedback is a gift, and we very much appreciate anyone who takes any time out of their day to interact with this program at all. This is kind of what we're working on. So this is a highlight of like if these pique your interest, then thumbs up. This is the wheelhouse for you. This is what we're talking about and what we're going to be kind of coming down the pike for 0.4.0. The new exceptions that you just live heard here on the call, that probably nerd sniped me out of some PRs that I have happening this afternoon. Improving the risk categorization. If you just see that we're not categorizing things correctly in our first in-memory, like kind of attempt at this, call us out. We'll update it. We want to do custom risk categorization so you can override the default that comes with Grant. We want to enhance the license detection. Are there aliases we're missing, ecosystems that we mess up? That's fun because that's either a Grant update or a Syft update. We talked about refining the risk ratings. We want to do license mappings to be a bit better. So like we have a bunch of aliases for stuff in Syft for how we match on the license, but our aliases could always be better on, finding those off by one errors where something's standing out as a quote unique license when it's actually just something in disguise as something from the SPDX list. We want to categorize edge case license. We want better license uncovering. We want like specific ecosystem like nuances that we just don't know about licenses. We would love for subject matter experts to say, "Oh, I ran into this while doing this ecosystem. This is a really hard gotcha that you need to include in Syft or it's not going to behave correctly." And then improving dual license risk assessment. So like we found 4 or 5, there are a bunch of or statements, we always take the top riskiest from that or statement, but if there are ways that we can write the config or do the config, which allow people to accept the most permissive from those ors, that would be great too. And we think that would help people not freak out as much as they find like a strong copy left in a list of 3. Okay. So these are questions we can answer, but we'll take anything from the chat. You're muted, Alan. I'm so sorry.
Sorry, I'm not used to being quiet. Thank you, Chris. So yeah, I would reaffirm that we are strongly encouraging people, like just try the stuff out. Like all of our tools, we love hearing from people with, issues, things that it doesn't find, because that it encourages us to have a really thoughtful process of designing how can we fix that. And we do a live stream every Thursday, which is in about an hour's time, where we go through some of those issues, for example. And I find it super fascinating learning like how we're going to approach fixing this thing. Ultimately the user just wants the thing fixed. But I personally find it fascinating because we're all learning about all these different ecosystems, all these different languages, because there's not one tool that can scan all of these things. Like we'd like to be that, but unfortunately the world is a complicated place and there are new languages and frameworks and toolkits popping up all the time, and people put language licenses in weird places and call them strange things and non-standard. So it's an ever evolving landscape of stuff to scan, isn't it?
Yeah, I really like that. I really like the way you frame that because I mean, I used to be one that was just like, oh, there's no tool for me. I'm going to go write my own tool, right? But we hope with the tools that we have now, a lot of the hard legwork has been done of either the TUI, the interaction, the ecosystem support that kind of exists, or the baseline that exists, right? That it's just that last 10% or 5% mile of specialized knowledge that you have that you can feel comfortable making the program work for you. So you don't have to go build this whole thing yourself, like build this architect and build the skyscraper as a single man or woman. You can just do the thing, which is contribute to where the skyscraper exists, put your design and new room in there, and then you have a program that works for you perfectly for your use case while also now 500 or 1,000 unsung, untalked people are using your same contribution to make
Yeah,
waves.
and it's also important. I think we've got a couple of questions. I just want one final point. I just want to let people know who haven't seen these tools before. They're fully open source. There's no API key. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to give us your email address to use them. You can just download them, or you can download the source and build them yourself. They're very robust. They're downloaded many, many times a day by many, many companies you've heard of and individuals, and they use them all day, every day. And trust us, we know because we find out when we break them. They tell us straight away. So yeah, we're very proud of these tools, and we just want to keep on improving them. So a couple of questions. One question here says, one thing I've been hoping to come to gripe is a vulnerability threshold. Will something like that be coming to gripe or grant?
Okay, so I think we might have some gating ability in gripe with like a fail on flag, but what I would like to look at, Colby, if there is a better way to do that, or if there's some reason that either fail on or some flag that is not working in gripe, we can talk about what you need and get in there. And I'll add that maybe for the live stream to talk about today of just what gating functionality exists in Gripe right now, because that does lead into, okay, one philosophy we have on the tools team is we want like very like same. I don't know if you saw in some of the slides, but if I go back to some of these demos, these look, very similar to how Syft does things and how Gripe does things. We have kind of like a shared flag or like a shared UI or kind of a shared idea. We don't want to write tools that all look very different. So if Gripe is doing something, we want grants to also have like Grant is gating on licenses. Gripe is gating on vulnerabilities. They should have a common palette of flags and usability that they select from, right? So if it's not in Grant, it's not. I know it's not right now. We will get some ability to do a fail on like a high risk kind of deal rather than just fail on exact licenses, right? That would be a solid add to the program for sure.
So, like having fail on no license or fail on GPL, for example, that would be, and just like stop at that point. Is that what you're talking
Yeah.
about?
And I also want to be super transparent about some of our philosophies too. You can now fail on no license. That is a config switch. We just haven't elevated that up into flags. One thing I've learned from Alex Goodman, who's the architect of a lot of these, like he was the first programmer here. He's a huge author on all of these programs. Is he's very like, what does the flag surface area should be very protected, right? Everything that's like configs, you can go deep on configs because you can take stuff out that can be as short or as long as you want. So functionality should first go in the configs, and then there should be like a little extra, like, I don't know, like extra thought or kind of like grimacing and like, does that look right? Does that feel like right as a flag going onto a program? So yes, it's already a config option for failing on unlicenses. Yes, we will get it into the config for other risk types. Flag TBD. Like we'll just talk about
Cool.
it and we'll see what the design looks like for that.
Absolutely. And if you have any requests for any of these tools, the issue tracker is the best place to do it. We're very friendly. We do respond, and we read every issue. Um, Usually I'm the first one to read them because if they come in overnight where everyone else is sleeping, I wake up first and I see them. That doesn't mean I fix them because I may not understand. Anyway, the next question is from Blaine. Do you have a short overview presentation that is more appropriate for legal resources to understand what Grant can do as a business overview? Yeah, we are quite technical, and I don't know that we have something that doesn't show a terminal, basically, with understanding license compliance and how Grant fits, in that environment and what you should think about. I think there's like a 5 to 10 slide overview in that. I just don't know that we've done that, have we?
No, and I think in the next like week or two, I have interviews lined up with a few people on the legal side to talk to them about like how do we how do we throw the output of Grant over the fence to legal, right? We're not in a world where we can expect lawyers to just have a terminal and be like, yes, of course I use Grant, right? Like, as someone who was considering law school, like way back in the day, I absolutely understand that that's not like, that's not a high bar requirement to get in. But what we do want to know is like, how do the legal professionals, what is the best way to communicate so that you get the best output from this, that they can understand and give you the green, yes, this looks good. So we're actively working on like what that might look like, what finding the best solution for the output that can go there. That's why we're pre 1.0. Um, Alan, do you have any friends? I think you have some friends that do license work.
So yeah, I'm doing two things.
Oh, nice.
The
Okay.
Yes, we are going to have a webinar soon, which has a couple of legal representatives, actual lawyers, who can talk from the legal point of view of license compliance. One from the European region and one from the US region, because things are a little bit different. There's the legal requirements the federal government have, and then over here there's the EU CRA, and I believe that's coming soon. We could certainly take input on other topics that could be related to that. Blaine has pointed out that they found one of the original intro to grant videos, which is on our YouTube channel.
Hmm.
So that's there, and I don't know if those slides are available somewhere. But
Well,
if you ping us on GitHub, just ping us on the grant issue tracker. We can certainly help uncover that kind of content if we've got it, and if not, then we can speak to the marketing team and get someone to put that kind of thing together.
I would also say V0.3.2, V0 3.0, but 3.2 with some of the bug fixes is a large shift away from what the original grant program was. We went through like a large okay, what should the workflow be? How can we walk through it? That's what this whole presentation was kind of about. So if you see that video, you'll see some of the warts or some of the old ways we were framing and looking at stuff and investigating. We found that that was, it was just as cumbersome as doing the license evaluation. So we tried to make it a little bit better with this new output, but more feedback is what leads to these tools getting better. You can see the iteration from that YouTube video to these demos in the current program, and then you can only imagine if we get the input from lawyers, like what is it that they need rather than us just thumbs upping and saying yeah, we gated on all this bag of licenses that you gave us to gate on. Now we should be compliant, right? We want to make that a little bit more of a meet in the middle than just here are the things you can't have. Great, I don't have them. Okay, go on. They don't have to.
Sweet. I think probably this is going to be close to our final question, which is I like the fail-on concept because we see licenses that specifically say no commercial use and other signatures. So being able to add known license names for a fail-on will go a long way. So yeah, that's a good scenario that is a useful use case, I think.
Yeah, and if you, whoever asked that question, I didn't see. I'm so sorry. I have a different view.
Antoine.
If you can file that with the specific license that says, I found this, so no commercial use in this package, right? Then that gives me the hard, real world. Okay, if I see this in this package, I want to fail on it. We can build the links so that that process works seamlessly with Grant, because then we can analyze what are all the common kind of things that all these no commercial use licenses have. We can say this is the group of things we want to match on that could cause it to be non-commercial. And you could do fail on non-commercial. We're talking about right now we have permissive, weak copyleft, strong copyleft. We're trying to talk about other buckets that licenses can be categorized in. They're not hard buckets where they just live in one. Something could be strong copyleft and non-commercial, right? You can have the Venn diagram. We're just trying to figure out the whole base set of how to label these that are the most useful for views so people can see immediately what they're trying to
Mm.
get rid of or to focus on. It's the problem child.
It's an interesting challenge because some of the tools, I had a friend trying to package up a piece of software, it will remain nameless, but it's open source, but they make it very difficult for you to figure out how and whether you can distribute it because they bury the license in a file not called license. The terms are, somewhere kind of in a locked filing cabinet behind a sign, beware of the leopard and all of that, to make it hard for you to figure it out because they don't want you to package the thing as open source. They want you to have a commercial arrangement. And so while they're playing along with the letter of the law, sometimes the spirit of these licenses can be broken slightly. And so being able to identify those, I'm sure, is going to be quite a challenge, especially when the documents aren't obviously named or in obvious places, or they're behind a sign up screen or something like that. It can be quite challenging.
Yeah, and Alan comes to a really good point there because this is what led to the whole performance gains that we made for this in the first place, where we were over aggressive and trying to find all edge cases of all of the things and like look at the file contents, even in the behind the leopards files, and like see if we can pull any kind of data out of those. But loading and reading every single file in some like large scan sizes would cause you to just balloon in memory, take a long time to scan. So it's better to flip that and do the mask where you find where all the edge cases are, you make it data driven. Hopefully, we get like in v0.5, we get like a database going out about Grant, where those decisions, you have those exceptions for those packages. It's like in some exceptions table that then knows how to get those like kind of hidden files. And then you don't need an update to the program grant. You can just update the database, build out that exceptions list for licenses that are quote problem adopters, and then you can know how to flag on that without having to touch your software.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's been asking questions and engaging. It's really useful to have this feedback because it helps us to make a better tool. And then, you win, we all win. So thank you. Oh, they've given us an example that I will look at afterwards because we're about out of time. So thank you, Chris. There's a slide in here somewhere that's got the link. That's it. So there's a couple of links there. I've already posted it in the chat, but if you go to github.com, Anchor, you'll find all our open source tools. The grant is there. You can download it and build it, or just download it and run it. We have a discourse community where you can ask questions. So if it's not a bug and you just want to have a conversation with us, we've got a forum where you can do that. We're all very friendly. And, this is sponsor the development of these tools, and we are employees of Anchor, and there is an enterprise tool that helps put food on the table and pay these poor humble developers to keep them in nice keyboards. So if you could take a look at Anchor Enterprise, if you are an enterprise organization and you want to do more than just a little bit of license scanning, maybe you've got large deployment and your regulatory compliance, or you want compliance with government mandates, for example, that kind of thing, then I'd strongly urge you to take a look at Anchor Enterprise as well. There's one final slide that's got your GitHub.
Oh, yeah.
I put that in there as well. So thank you again, everyone. And don't forget, you'll get an email with a copy of this video, and we'll send you the slides as well. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you at the next one. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers.